Welcome to the Rich Carroll program. I am your host, Rich Carroll. So today I wanted to talk about Alfie Evans. And we already know that this story is over with, but I believe it's a very important story. And I wanted to do a video on it, even though that it is pretty much out of the headlines. And if you're unfamiliar with Alfie and his story, he was a toddler in the United Kingdom who had been in a semi-vegetative state, not a vegetative one, semi-vegetative, for over a year. And the British Supreme Court ultimately ruled that Alfie could not be saved. They said it was unkind. They said it was futile to even continue treatment. The decision was in agreement with Alder Hey Children's Hospital. Alfie's parents appealed to take Alfie to Italy for further treatment, but were denied by the courts. And this is what's really preposterous about this story. Alfie had been granted Italian citizenship, and there was even a helicopter on standby waiting to airlift him out of the country. But the British courts denied that. 5 days after being taken off a ventilator, Alfie died. But even that defied the predictions of the doctors, who said he would die very shortly after being taken off the ventilator. Ultimately, I think this is just a horrible case of the state condemning a child to death. And this ruling sends a message that a child does not belong to their parents, but ultimately to the state. And this was not a case of neglectful parenting either. They were trying to get more medical treatment, but the courts decided they knew best. Now, the Michigan Right to Life, they have boiled this down into 5 points on why this story matters in our society, why it should matter to you and me. And I wanted to go over those real quick. Number one, they write, is that patient choice matters. Parents are responsible for children who can't express their own wishes. Number two, subjective quality of life concerns are dangerous for the sick and disabled. Number three, courts took away Alfie from his parents entirely based on their opinion of his quality of life. His parents were doing nothing wrong or abusive. Number four, there was no evidence that Alfie was suffering other than his being alive with a disability. Number five, courts should not take children away from their parents because judges believe death is preferable to disability. They go on to write, medical miracles happen and doctors can be wrong about a diagnosis. Unfortunately, many doctors, hospitals, academics, and government officials have come to believe that many forms of disability are so insufferable that a person is objectively better off dead. Theoretically, there could have been good reasons to remove Alfie from his parents' care, but the court simply decided they knew better about what Alfie needed than his parents, and that need was death. This was not a case where Alfie's medical care was futile. Alfie was still able to digest foods and fluids. Alfie was not brain dead, obviously proven when he continued breathing on his own for days after the ventilator was removed. Now, you're probably thinking right now, man, I'm glad I live in America where this could never happen. But Michelle Malkin recently wrote an article where she lists some similar situations that happened right here in the United States. The first one being Haley Putri, who in the state of Massachusetts was declared virtually brain dead and in a persistent vegetative state. And as state officials prepared to remove Haley's life support, she began breathing on her own. And today, Haley is 24 years old and lives with her adoptive parents. And though she is confined to a wheelchair, she attends school and occupational therapy. Michelle also writes about, everybody knows this case, Terry Schiavo, in which a Florida judge ordered her to be deprived of water and food, which ultimately led to her death over 13 days. Finally, she writes about Jahi McMath, who in 2013 was declared brain dead by medical experts. And the Oakland Children's Hospital pushed to have all life-sustaining medical treatment terminated. Her mother ended up going to New Jersey for long-term care, And there, medical ethics writer Wesley Smith visited and reported, "At the time of the tragedy, I believed that Jahi was indeed dead, but I now have strong doubts. It's nearly 4 years later, and Jahi's body still has not broken down. Her skin remains smooth. There are no foul odors in her room, as would be expected when a brain-dead person's body deteriorates. She has experienced no visible bodily decline. Disabled is not dead." It's crazy to imagine that this could happen in the United States. And there's more instances I could give. But what we should take away from this is that we need to be vigilant not to let our government get that big. But when we start courting ideas like single-payer healthcare, in which the government is the main provider of healthcare, then we're headed down that road. You know, Thomas Paine wrote in Common Sense that government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. But I just say, just because government is necessary doesn't mean it has to be bloated and oversized to the point where it decides who lives and who dies. I'm Rich Carroll. Thank you for tuning in. God bless.